We have yet another Q2 level, of course, to do. Who would have guessed that one? But yeah, we're getting there in Q2. I think we're actually getting pretty far in all of this stuff. Um, yeah, I think we're exactly at 95 levels. I see. So, yeah, we're almost there. It's just a bit more inching along, and eventually we'll be free from Q2. So, yeah, it's just mostly completing things, calling it a day, and basically getting it all done so we can say we've captured everything for Q2. It's there. Yeah, I hope you're happy. Yeah. Well, like I said, Q2, there are some benefits and there are some benefits to it. Um, like I said, if you want more Quake content, um, oversaturation is indeed a thing, but one thing that is not heavily oversaturated is the single player market. Quake is a game that really does not have much offered for single player, it feels like. Um, and with Deathmatch being pretty much resigned to a few key maps that everyone plays over and over and over, that means most of their content is pretty useless. Yeah, we have like a massive stream of content out there that is pretty much useless to everyone. Ain't that brilliant? Quick, the game where the most useless things exist. Except for maybe something like Unreal Tournament or Quake 3 Arena, whereby the entire game. No, because those are bot matches. So even in those cases, you'd still have like a single player thing going on to it. You'd still have some way to have meaning by yourself or whatnot if everyone else wasn't playing it. Here, like I said, the community basically focuses on like 7 maps, maybe. Um, Specifically, I think it's 3 maps from like regular Quake, maybe like 2 custom ones generally, maybe another one or two after will be tossed on there. But like I said, really it's a very very limited selection, and so that means all multiplayer stuff's useless. And we have a very limited selection of single player. So it is very very nice when we actually get something that is useful, something that contributes something besides like a novelty just to look at. Because like I said, it may be interesting or something to look at something and see how it is, like how people could play it, but at the end of the day, most of the content we'll be checking out is pretty much non-existent. At least for practicality, unless you can find someone else who will be willing to participate with you. And most people who are playing Quake in this day and age are pretty much stuck in their roots. They don't really like to bounce around with a bunch of things, and it's pretty hard to communicate with people when it comes to Quake servers anyway. Um, yeah. Especially when you have a weird set of things like I do, whereby it's like I want certain things old school, but certain things new school, and it's when you start getting that weird selective that really doesn't help anyway. Well, like I said, I think Quake is probably one of the worst games if you're trying to choose like a multiplayer community. Like if I think like compare it to like Unreal, I don't think like Unreal has a similar limitation on like maps. I think like Unreal has like actually a wide variety of deathmatch maps that are popular among different servers. Quake pretty much has a very, very limited selection, which is surprising coming from one of the most modded games of all time. I think that's the biggest problem. You would expect this of a game whereby there wasn't much offered, and where there's like um most maps are lesser quality or whatnot and absolute junk. But when you have a massive amount of content, you would say that some of it would be useful for at least adding to your massive, lineup or so. It's just weird. Hard to explain, but yeah, it's a very weird situation whereby nobody does anything with all this stuff, and well, we can't do anything with it. Anyway, I kind of went off a random tangent there, but yeah. At the end of the day, that's kind of the good thing about Q2. Q2 offers half and half, if you've seen. It offers 50 or so multiplayer levels and 51 single player levels, I believe. I believe it's favored one more towards the single player size, if I'm correct. Though we do have duplicates and all that junk, so it really kind of evens out in the end. Um, but even with all that said, the fact of the matter is that we do have a bunch of single player stuff that could work for cooperative games, could work as a single player thing if you just want to play by yourself. It just allows for a bunch of extra content and whatnot. It is nothing equality. We know this. We've said this a million times. It's absolute junk quality wise. Enemies are mostly looking away from you. You're probably not going to be offered much challenge, which means that mostly it's going to be pretty mindless shooting. Um, Maybe sometimes there'll be like a little bit of risk, but generally speaking, it's not too intense. Um, and yeah, it definitely is just something to add to basically elongate the experience, to mix it up with enough variety to basically keep everything fresh while basically being able to play the same game or whatnot. I think this is why most people get sick of a game or whatnot because they stick to like a base theme of levels or something like that. By having even this terrible stuff here being thrown in, it allows for some variety that allows people to be interested in something like that. You have enough little weird differences, it keeps you interested in something even if it's the same game because of how different it is. And so yeah, Q2 is very thematically different from everything else because it's so terribly designed or whatnot. It stands out and it's one texture based, linearity based nightmares. So you could recognize right away it's a Q2 level. You basically know how the rules of Q2 work. It's pretty easy to understand. Shoot everything and get that's the end of the level. And if basically you can understand that rule and can easily express it to the other players, that way they actually understand and don't complain for the next half an hour where the exit is. Um, and you can remember half the level names. That's kind of the biggest pain in the butt part. I think if like you do change level and it's not a level name, it actually causes the server to crash. So good luck. Hopefully you remember the names of the levels. This is where having two monitors would come in great hand because you need to see that level list. If you want to have any chance of not crashing the entire server doing this. Um, but still, as I'm trying to say, it's content. It's extra stuff that you can use, like I said, especially the single player side. The multiplayer pretty much junk. Nobody's going to bother. But at least we get 50 single player levels, 50 additional levels. That's a decent amount of content. Each one's pretty short and bite sized, but there is enough whereby you could entertain yourself a little bit of time. And it just mixes everything up. It is stuff that we're not going to see too much in the additional packs in terms of quantity. I think sometimes that is kind of needed for like Quake because Quake levels are short. Um, I don't really I can't think of like a Quake level that really would take a really long time. And I think that's kind of just how Quake is designed. It's designed to be a quick blast through experience. So that makes it pretty complicated when you try and do anything beyond that. So anyway, I think I've been ranting for 9 minutes. Yeah, I kind of decided to get on my soapbox and start telling you about why exactly Q2 is still has some redemption factor, or why exactly Q2 might serve some interest even now. Because, like I said, if you have to like choose from the packs, Q2 probably isn't one of the best to choose, but it is something additional. It's the idea of it being 50 extra levels, and 50 is a pretty good number. So being able to throw quantity in this case might actually be good. Like I said, it's definitely not the best, but at least it doesn't cause as many severe frustrations as say some other things would. Say like you compare this to like a more complex game. A more complex game, the terrible levels might have like frustrating puzzles or annoying situations whereby you can't do things because it breaks the level. Like maybe the level's not even completable, or maybe it is. Maybe it's like I can't even think off the top of my head what it could be, but there's a lot of weird things that could happen that could make like a level totally broken. And as long as you stick to single player side of Q2, if you notice, we didn't suffer many problems beyond one duplicate, which isn't the end of the world. We can easily like just pass out one level. And other than that, there are some levels whereby you can't kill all the enemies, which does stink for completion's sake, but it is something. It is better than, heaven. I think it's still like over 90% of it is completable. So that's much better than I think even Quake's repertoire. If you're gonna like complain about something, I don't think Quake is the right game to target the original game for 100% completion. That just kind of makes for some great imbalance there because yeah, the original Quake, if you remember, we had so many issues with like killing things and whatnot and getting 100% completion that yeah, I think if there's one game that really could not be used as an example for um standards of 100% completion for custom add-ons, I don't think Quake would be the best one. And so really you cannot hold Q2 to that, even though Q2 does a decent job for most of it. Like I said, even the most levels that do have like impossible situations, for the most part, it's mostly just zombies that you would have to like lure into like a nearly impossible situation. It isn't how like Quake was, whereby it's like finicky spawns and all these weird little issues. So in that way, Q2's simplicity helps. It makes it better in that regard that you don't have as much tedium in regards to things spawning or breaking because everything's just splashed around in the map and said, here you go. It's sloppy and lazy, but at the same time, it works. And sometimes this is why simplicity is a good thing. I think at the end of the day, the lesson is complexity is good if complexity makes something better. If complexity exists in something that's terrible, it's going to become a very terrible thing indeed, and it basically brings it down. So I think by keeping it simple, it avoids taking risks, which is a bad thing because not taking risks means less experimentation, which means less variety or interest. But it also means more stuff that you probably can tolerate or whatnot, and just almost play mindlessly. Now, I would say this is nothing you go out of your way to play, but like I said, I think probably the best example of it is a server that you're basically hosting for like half a day or so, and you have like a bunch of people like playing, and you're doing all these different levels, and you're running through the levels. These are kind of like this is basically like the junk food or so to pop out of the cupboard or so because you forgot your friends were coming over. Something random like that. Anyway, my God, I just keep trying to talk. Yeah, this is what happens. I really wanted to kind of make a point of all this. Now that we're getting towards the end of Q2, I figured I wanted to make almost kind of make some closing remarks on what exactly Q2 is about and exactly kind of where my stance is with everything. Because, like I said, I hear often, especially with other Quake guy people, which they don't have experience fully with the pack, but they do have it right that Q2 is pretty terrible. You can tell that just because of the flaws we've gone through, but there is a good lining to it if you can understand that it does serve purpose in like mass. And I think really that's like the most important thing to remember about this is that with Quake, edible chips might be useful. Anyway, I'm going to start talking again. Otherwise, I got to get into this thing. My God, what am I doing? I'm getting very, very talkative today. And suddenly I've become a chatterbox and just. Oh, I don't want to get out my soapbox, man. Wait a minute, what the? Okay, I got the. There we are. Okay, I don't know what exactly happened there. DOSBots acted up on me. I blame DOSBots and its funky controls. Alright, so, Exile. I was thinking based on the armor that this was going to be a duplicate map of The Walls Have Eyes. Actually, it might still be. We might just be on like one of the side areas, like the opposite side from where we were in The Walls Have Eyes. I like the fact that there's a fiend there. Yeah, that might be a problem. Especially if we don't have any ammo. Kill him, buddy! Okay, I think there's still a grunt somewhere. Yoo-hoo, Mr. Grunt! Where's the grunt? There's a grunt, he's grunting! He's grunting, I hear the grunt grunting! Who would have guessed, a grunt can grunt? I think that's why they call him a grunt. You like whack him with the axe? Hooray! I think I found his weakness! The doorway! Okay. Just gonna time our shots between it. Then we can get out of this little tiny cupboard room. Why they decided to throw me in here with no ammo whatsoever and the fiend? I don't know. But luckily we were able to wipe them out. Oh my god, there's more stuff trying to kill me. Wait a minute! Oh my god, shoot! Okay, there was a bloody spawn. Thank goodness that thing's dead. Anyway, if you notice, there's still the floating armor from the Walls of Eyes, so even that's still a thing. That's very, very weird. I don't think that was in the multiplayer variants, but it's in both of the single player. You know, this might actually be a retextured job and nothing more. I actually forget. I know there was a fiend on one side, but I don't think there was a spawn in the other one. No, I think that's actually a weird way to signify all this, because every single one we've been playing lately, there was one spawn in the map. It's all been retextured as the previous maps, and they've been changed around or whatnot. And almost to like officiate that they've changed, they throw one spawn, an enemy that was rarely used beforehand, in the map. It's really, really weird, but okay. It's starting to definitely seem like some weird signature thing. I could use armor. Now I do hear grunts grunting. Okay, this probably wasn't the best of ideas. Now I have a bunch of things trying to kill me. Oh joy. Okay, let's rush straight. Quick to the pentagram! This was a bad idea! This was a bad idea. I need help, so I'm trying to mass as much as possible. Because otherwise gonna be a pain in the butt, so by wiping him out. Oh, a grenade launcher! I think that's the same spot it used to be. More explosives! I could use that. And now we have a corner to dominate. I think there's still a scrag? I heard a scrag. Aha! I have found you, my scrag friend! Flies like a bush, stings like a bee. And now he is dead for eternity. Okay, so where is the last guy? And what is the last guy? Oh wait, I see him! Oh, he was pathetic. Yeah, when you have a single guy standing at a wall, not be able to see anything, and make him pretty easily visible to the player, yeah, that makes for a pretty easy encounter. But yeah, the pentagram as usual made it so we basically decimated everything in the short level without really any effort whatsoever. I think actually that's another thing to mention about this, and I think we're done here, so I think I'm going to exit. But One thing I actually think about Q2, and one reason why I think it's easier, I haven't actually thought of this until now, but I'm starting to realize the big reason why Q2 might be easier is because Quake power ups are quite powerful. The quad damage is ridiculously overpowered to a point that it pretty much decimates anything that comes your way. The pentagram basically makes you invulnerable, so that of course is powerful. And yeah, everything else is pretty useless, but those two alone make for a pretty godly experience or whatnot in comparison to your normal game, whereby that type of stuff isn't exactly what's given you. So with that in mind, overpowered power ups worked in the original game because of how exactly the maps were designed. They were often designed with slow moving elevators at times, with different traps in the way. It was basically making you move through the map at a certain pace, whereby it would slow you down intentionally. And that slowdown would almost basically forcibly remove your power up. You basically couldn't wipe out everything in the map with one power up because the fact of the matter, you had to wait for things to proceed, which in turn basically allowed this thing to be evaporated. I think that's a big difference between Q2 because in Q2 it's a few like barren rooms or whatnot with like a couple enemies splashed in each room, and that's pretty much about it. And if you throw or one of these overpowered power ups at one, by the end of it, you basically decimated a good number of everything that was in the Q2. So even if you start with only a few, if you basically dominate like the beginning area, the area with a power up, you basically got the level. Usually that seems like the hardest part of Q2 is probably the beginning area of each section, mainly because of grunts and the lack of armor. That's really kind of like a painful combination. There's like no armor whatsoever, really, generally in Q2. Um, usually they might throw one here or there, but it definitely seems like there are plenty of levels without like any of that, or with just barely any health. They're very lacking in resources besides ammo, which they usually love to just spam a bunch of rocket packs and allow me to be ridiculously overpowered. But that's beside the point. And I think, yeah, I think I've been rambling for long enough, but I thought it make sense to explain some of the reasons why exactly Q2 is so easy in comparison to the original game, because it definitely is weird, because one thing that definitely was memorable about the original game was the base levels. They could be pretty lethal to a player that's unaware of the environment, because hit scan opponents can sometimes be pretty dangerous. Um, Even if it's pretty much two shot grunts or whatnot, it's still the fact of the matter that hit scan opponents can cause injury if you don't know what you're doing. So throwing basically every single Q2 level to have it should make Q2 a bit of a painful gauntlet, especially with all the lack of resources. But yeah, I think it has something to do with the way enemies are generally facing, the fact that a lot just clusters towards you at the beginning, and as long as you basically hold your own in that starting room area, which is usually empty, you're usually pretty much fine, and you pretty much just are guarding against a massive horde coming at you. And then pretty much you get a power up that pretty much allows you to dominate the rest of it and makes everything into a joke. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's probably a good example of why exactly Q2 is the way it is, and why it's almost so mindless half the time. Um, and why certain levels feel harder than others. It's almost like how long it takes before you get to one of these power ups, or if there's actually anything of real danger between you and the power up. Um, like I can imagine the spawn had been a bit worse if we didn't blow them up right away. Definitely the spawn is something that makes you always sweat. Um, there's a reason it was used in so little of original Quake, and so definitely it makes for always a fun encounter. Honestly, I think I'm starting to gain more and more appreciation for the spawn as we go along. Uh, it's one of the most loathed the Quake's creatures, but I think I'm almost liking it just for that reason, that it's pure evil. It makes for the challenge. It's Quake. honestly is not exactly the hardest of FPS titles. It definitely does not hold like a candle to like Unreal or a lot of latest shooters. Um, but one thing it does have is the spawn. And yes, the spawn is quite the evil enemy in pretty much every sense of the word. So yeah, I think really that was like the saving grace was that the spawn was so sporadically used, and so having basically these add-ons being able to take that and throw you a bunch of spawns makes for a fun time, even if it's absolutely a sadist a sadist dream and a normal person's nightmare. I guess I'm the sadist. Yeah, I'm some type of twisted video game sadist. Who would have guessed that one after I did a whole shotgun start of every Quake level? Even E2M6, the dreaded level itself. But yeah, I think I've been ranting for long enough. Oh my god, this is about to hit 20, half an hour. See, this is what happens. I started talking, I like talking, so I just start rambling. And so I completely forget to actually, play the level. So yeah, hopefully you guys appreciated me talking for a bit, and this probably will serve as a good thing to just like cover a lot of facts about Q2, a lot of general concepts and whatnot that I don't think I've really covered elsewhere. Mostly because with these, it's almost like here level, here this. There's really not much to really explain. But yeah, now that we've kind of seen a lot of Q2 and I can almost show you guys and reflect back on it from all this, now that it's all fresh in my head, it almost makes sense to kind of explain to you guys why it's fresh, what exactly all these things are about. And so anyway, yeah, I'm just going to keep talking if I keep doing this. So thank you very much all for watching. It's been painful. And I shall see you all next time.